The Blast from Our Past Network.
Welcome to a Patreon exclusive episode of Podcasting After Dark, an elite installment for our Patreon supporters. Lock your doors, close your windows, seal your fate. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this month's episode of Podcasting After Dark presents Wrap Up After Dark. If you're listening to this for the first time, it is our monthly Patreon exclusive show, but if this winds up on the free feeds, which it probably will, because we have our pal Dan Parker on here with us. And but if you first time listening, this is a monthly show that we do on Patreon. So swing on by Patreon and check us out. And if you're listening on Patreon, well, thank you guys so freaking much. You make this show happen. You make the posters happen that Dan Parker makes and everything. So before we jump into that, Zach, how's it going, buddy?
I'm happy to be here and happy to see Dan for the first time and talk to Dan for the first time. It's been, 4 years now? And it's an honor to... You are a phenomenal artist, and I can tell you that to your face now. He's provided the color of the colored palette of our cult movie podcast for the past 4 years. And oh my gosh, what a wild ride it's been.
Yeah, Dan, this is a huge honor for us, man. We've both been huge fans of your work. We found you through Instagram way back in the day, like when we were first starting this, and we formed a bond and a friendship, and you've been doing the posters for us, which are just unfrickin' believable. But Dan Parker, how's it going, buddy? Welcome to Podcasting After Dark.
Hi guys. Obviously, I realised nobody else can see me waving at you on the audio. But I'm stoked to be here.
Oh, dude, it's a freaking honor. You just did our year 4. I guess it's 4. Yeah, year 4 poster. So we're in year 5 technically. So you did our year 4 poster, but you've done each and every single one of them, and I can honestly say that your style has improved over the years. It's awesome to see. Not that means anything at the beginning. Like, that doesn't mean anything negative about your style at the beginning. No. Obviously, we freaking loved you. But, like, it's awesome to see that over time. And we have these, like, benchmarks, these yearly benchmarks. And we keep talking about it every year, man. As long as we keep doing the show and as long as you keep wanting to do it, you're going to be doing the posters for these years.
Well, that's fine by me.
You can't see this because it's Dan's got on his back wall a Shaun of the Dead poster on his back wall, and the minute it popped on, I was like,
and that you can't see it, it's in the glare, signed by George Romero as well.
Oh,
that's awesome.
It's got Simon Pegg and Nick Frost on it, autographs on it, but somebody was poo-parring me for getting George Romero's autograph on it, but it's actually next to the quote that says "an absolute blast," George Romero. And
yeah, I mean, come on, that's phenomenal. Rest in peace,
really
the
cool.
legend, the legend, who we've crapped on a little bit on the show in a loving way.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not everything he does was gold, but it was all worth watching.
We're finding that out with John Carpenter right now with the Carpenter Factor. That John Carpenter is one of our favorite directors of all time. Maybe the most favorite director for the two of us, possibly. And not everything he did was a Wonka bar. Some of them were a gobstopper that got stuck in your teeth and pulled some fillings out.
Some of them were somebody's watching me. Some of them were that.
It's funny you should say that, because I was trying to watch that last night because I realised I'd never seen it and I can't find it anywhere.
Oh, I think we had to buy it because I don't think it's even streaming anywhere. So
I think Dan Parker just won himself a Blu-ray courtesy of me.
Because you're like, I don't want that in my collection anymore.
Nope. It's really not good. I'd heard good things about it for a TV movie.
It's not terrible.
Yeah, it's not terrible, but yeah, it's not the greatest.
It's no Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, I can tell you that.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the one I do like.
That is on the top of everyone's list as far as horror films are concerned.
Horror
TV television.
Movies.
Horror TV movies, yeah.
Zach, do you remember that Gargoyles one that came out in the early 80s, late 70s? Wasn't that a TV movie too?
With William...
Stan Winston?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Effects for it. It was, in fact, it's the first time he was credited with doing the makeup effects on something.
That scared the shit out of me when I was a kid when I caught that on TV.
Well, I mean, I don't remember. I don't think I've actually seen it. I'm familiar with it. The only TV horror film that I can think of from that era that terrified me, and I talked about it on an episode, was Salem's Lot. People forget
I thought you were going to go with
movie.
I thought you were going to go with Day After Tomorrow.
That too.
Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
Oh, that too. I think you were going to go with I Know My First Name is Steven.
Well, Dan, didn't you guys get because we got Day After Tomorrow over here, didn't you guys get Threads over there? Wasn't that sort of the same? Didn't have that sort of have the same impact where it kind of traumatized a generation of kids because it was made for TV and it was still scary as hell? Or did that come out in the theater?
No. It was TV, BBC. Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever really used the word grim to describe, something I'd seen on TV. I was like, God, it just unremitting gloom throughout.
I think that those. Have you ever seen Miracle Mile? Have you seen Miracle Mile?
Oh no, is that Michael Mann?
No, it's actually Steve Desjardins who directed Cherry 2000. He only did a couple movies, but he did a lot of television shows. And that is I've talked to Corey about that quite a few times. It's a nuclear meltdown love story.
Yes, I've heard it on the $2 late fee. You've talked about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. We just talked about that the other day, I think.
Yeah, I need to see that so bad, dude, because you have talked about it a bunch. And just to go back to Threads, when what's his name, Facebook guy, announced his Twitter, killer, and it's called Threads, and I was like, literally the first thing I thought of was that image of that soldier with the bandage across his face and everything. I was like, I don't think you really marketed this well in the UK.
Yeah, that's a traffic warden, not a soldier.
Okay.
So he gets what he deserved. Yeah, I mean, the main thing I remember about that is there's a scene where somebody pulls some melted Star Wars figures out of some rubble.
Oh, wow.
Luke Skywalker, and I'm like, oh, dear God, what did you do to that figure?
It's like, if Luke Skywalker can't even survive this, how am I supposed to survive it? I think, since this is all of our first time talking and everything, and our show is so nostalgic based, Dan, you don't have to say how old you are, but are you an 80s kid at heart? Did you grow up in the 80s primarily?
Well, yeah, I've just turned 50. I'm not scared to admit that.
Okay.
So it's weird because I was born in the 70s, but it was sort of more the 80s was where I was growing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if that makes sense.
Yep.
So my sister always says we got the best era for films because we got all the 80s classics, Back to the Future and Goonies and Howard the Duck.
Right.
And the best era for toys too, I'd say.
Yeah. After that, everything was just sort of repeating what we'd already seen. Yeah, I'd say, I'm a child of the 70s or 80s.
Okay.
All my TV influences are 70s. All my film influences are 80s.
Yeah, that sounds. I think that usually goes with people because you're watching what's in syndication, right, Zach? Like you're kind of catching, the stuff that came out previously, even though it's a few years removed.
Yeah, I think that the three of us are all in that similar boat. Dan, you're a couple years older than the two of us, but 70s sitcoms were a staple growing up in the early 80s. Whether it be Welcome Back, Kotter, or Three's Company, which is a 70s show. People forget that started in the 70s.
We didn't get anything like that. I can remember stopping up super late in the early 80s to watch old episodes of Archie Bunker's Place. Just because it was old TV on a new channel. I was like, oh.
Right.
But, Welcome Back, Kotter, in fact, I'd never seen until last week. I flicked over on let's just say a less than legal Fire Stick, watched US TV, and it was like, well, I know John Travolta's in that, and I watched about 10 minutes. But a lot of the stuff we never got. I remember watching Rowan and Martin's Laughing, which would have been old when it was on in the 70s over here.
Yeah,
that was at Bat and Rhoda. That was about as far behind. How far behind we were in the 70s, late 70s. We were getting early 70s stuff. Wasn't
Way to roll that back to Adrian Barbeau and Someone's Watching Me.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I have fond memories of knowing that I'd stopped up because they weren't prime time over here either. They'd be on after 10 p.m. just filler on the BBC. So I knew I'd stopped up late if I managed to see Rhoda or Taxi. Taxi was probably the one we got closest to it being new when we got it screened over here. Early 80s, we caught up. We had Cheers when it came out, and you know, all the other big ones. And
so you were like, Cheers was actually like you were getting it like in real time, the same time we got it here, or was there a delay, like a year or anything?
I think there was a bit of a delay. It wasn't. This will jump to another program. I didn't realise that we had a delay until I remember watching the last episode of Moonlighting.
Oh.
And Moonlighting told you when the Blue Moon Detective Agency shut down on the last episode. And that was when I realised we were like 6-7 months behind.
Wow.
But with things like Taxi and things, I've always had a weird fixation with looking at the dates at the end of the TV shows. So Taxi come up and, you know, Situ Boo Sit or whatever it was. And I'd know what year it came out. Sorry?
No, I was going to say that's how I learned Roman numerals, I believe, because at the end of a movie when I'm like, what is this MCM? Oh, wait, M must be 100. Oh, okay, I'm getting this now. C and...
Yeah, you see, I cheat. I just remember the last 3 or 4 Roman numerals and then divide it by the fashions.
That's all you need. Yeah, right.
Well, so... I know you've been, I'm assuming you've been drawing your whole life. Did you draw inspiration from the movies? Okay, no. So let's talk about your artistic background then.
I've always been able to draw in some form. I drew when I was at school, but there was a long story where I couldn't do art at school because it was oversubscribed. So I ended up doing textiles, which I didn't want to do. Then I did art at college, where what I did wasn't considered art. And then basically between college and 5 years ago, I did nothing. Just you know, I decided that I needed an interest. And whereas I thought, I've got a brother that has a comic book, The Sensational Merrick, all about the Elephant Man, Victorian Adventures of the Elephant Man. Kind of like that boy.
That's cool.
And he was making a go of it, and I was like, you know what, I should really start doing this again. And so I did. And then, you know, 5 years ago, whereas I thought I was quite good, I realised I was actually quite bad. And then, but now, 5 years later, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm still not amazing, but I have my moments, and my moments are getting closer together. So, but yeah, although I've said I went to college, basically everything I do now is self-taught.
Wow, cool.
I just figure it out as I go along.
So if you started back about 5 years ago, that means we bumped into each other. You were about a year in to this sort of, reawakening inside of you. And I mean, that is a testimony to your talent because, I mean, right away, I was blown away by your artwork. And obviously, Zach and I both were. I was like, hey, Zach, check this out. And, we start talking. I'm like, and I pitched Zach the idea of what, wanted to do with the poster and, get, sign off on it and everything like that. And it's just like, it's remarkable to me that by that point, you were only into this like by a year and probably a few months or something.
It took me about a year. I had a lot of doubt about what my style was because I couldn't see what my style was. Because it was still early, not every picture would be the same or look the same. So by the time I did your first poster, I'd got about 90% of my style down. I knew what I was doing, I knew what I was good at, and I knew what I wasn't good at. I always say to people, people like, oh yeah, you work to your strengths. I'm like, no, I work to my weaknesses. If there's something I'm really good at, I'll just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Just because now, like I said, I'm 50, I'm like, well, I haven't got time to practice all the bits I'm not good at. I may as well perfect the other stuff, the stuff I'm closer to finishing, if that makes sense. But yeah, like I say, I mean, that was early days when you first asked me to do that. The first poster, and I was, I thought that was amazing. But because even now, occasionally, well, not so much now, but I still get to moments where I'm like, I don't understand what everybody sees in what I do, because I know some really, really good artists, that are amazing, and there's a few of them that are always coming asking me my opinion on stuff, or I'm like, well, why are you asking me? I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, yeah, no, you are. And I'm like, yeah, I'm wandering off now.
Yeah. No, you're speaking to a place of being humble, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to be humble. And
well, I know there are things. Yeah, I'm not as humble as I used to be, because I'm like at the point where I'm like, well, yeah, I know I can do this and I can do that.
Yeah, right.
And so, but yeah, it's still a great. But like I said, being asked every year to do the poster, it's my favorite job of the year, every year.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Well, just because you can work there, well, do pieces for some people and then micromanage. But it's just like, well, I can't work like that. You're asking me to do it because you like what I do. Let me do what I do.
And I've always had an art background, and I kind of pride myself on trying to be an artist. So, like, I mean, our conversations with Dan and me are usually like, Dan's like, well, what's this? And I'm like, I don't know, do whatever you want, buddy. It's like, I commissioned you because I love your style. It just do what you want, and you know what I mean? And slap our logo on there, whatever inspires you, and I think you've hit it out of the park every single year.
Yeah, like I said, I'm impressed myself. Like I said in one of our chats online, I can use the posters as a barometer of how much I've improved year on year, because I think this year's is the best one I've done, whereas last year's was the best one I'd done, and the year before that was the best. The first one I was like, oh, I'm really pleased with this, but I can, not just the art wise, but I was looking at the first one because I have to get my brother to do all the computer side of it if it needs or colouring. And I was just like, oh, the line work on that, you can't see it. It's washed out because of the way it had been scanned. So now I'm more on top of that, where it's like, no, it's got to do this, and it's got to do that. And, I'm learning a bit about that on the way, but I'm too old to learn all the computer bit now. And I don't have a computer, which wouldn't help. But yeah,
I appreciate that too. So much is now done on the computer, which is totally fine. I've seen that the technology is mind blowing, but it's always great to see old school sketches and drawings and illustrations done that way too.
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing against what's the word for it?
AI, computer art, or Photoshop?
No, well, yeah, Photoshop and stuff. AI, I can't believe that we've been, watching Terminator and all that sort of stuff and get us through our art.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how they're going to take over the world through the things we didn't think we'd be bothered about.
Yeah.
Computer generated tablets and things like that. But it does amaze me the amount I can appreciate just adding to hand-drawn art with it, where my brother adds filters and this and that and moves things around. It's like, yeah, I can. That'd be great. I'm just scared that if I did that I'd stop learning how to draw. Because you can make a mistake and just get rid of it and do it again and get rid of it and do it again and get rid of it, but you won't necessarily learn how to correct it or get around it with on a real piece of paper. That's what scares me. I've learned so much from making mistakes, and even just how to cover them up. I was always scared to wipe things out on a piece of paper, because obviously there's only so many passes you can take to a piece of paper before you have to do it all again.
Right. And
that's half of what I've learned, is just don't be afraid to cover up mistakes or paint over something or just hide it.
One of my favorite art styles, because I grew up reading comic books and all that kind of stuff. There were a handful of artists that would maybe watercolor over their pencils or something, but you could still see their pencil work underneath. And I always liked that. I always liked seeing the errant lines and stuff like that. I always thought it was very organic. I always enjoyed those kind of art styles.
Yeah. I was thinking about it the other day because I've just grabbed a handful of what I thought were recent comics, and it turns out they're 20 years old. But it was like the artwork was still artwork, and then I looked at something from a couple of years ago, and I'm like, it's all really homogenized now. Everything looks like everything else. You don't seem to have anyone that really stands out. I mean, I'm probably somewhat doing hundreds of people a disservice, but in your average Marvel comic now, everybody looks the same as everybody else because it's all computer colored and it's all computer lined. Whereas I like looking through the 70s and 80s stuff where every page pops. There's always something going on in every page, and you can tell. Shows you how much of a fool I was. I didn't like Jack Kirby until I was probably in my late 20s, because as a kid I was like, I don't get it. What's all these weird machines and the lighting and the thick black lines? I didn't get it. And then one day when I was an adult, I was like, you know what? This guy's unlike anything else that was around, and that's the point. That's why he was good. Yeah, I mean, I think art is suffering a bit from the overuse. I can understand it making things quicker on computers and stuff, but it's like I found out there was an artist, I can't remember what the name was, but I kept seeing their work, and they were doing super detailed. It was sort of semi manga, but it was American, and it was sort of looked like it'd been coloured with watercolours, but the line work was really strong. And he was doing all these amazingly detailed like airships and riverboats and things. And I was like, this is amazing.
Cool.
And I watched a video where he just had it all on a computer. And he had a computer model of the riverboat.
And
drop in and draw over. And I'm like, well, that's not the same. Yeah. And it sort of took a bit away from it for me.
It makes you wonder if, like, because, you know, growing up, I was reading a bunch of comics my entire life. Probably more up until recently. I don't read them anymore. But, like, you know, some of my favorite artists were like Sam Keith back in the day. Yep, he did like the Max and everything. And you wonder, it's like, would he ever have a job at Marvel nowadays? Like, his style is so out there, but I freaking love. Zach, do you remember Sam Keith at all? Do you remember the show The Max on Liquid Television was a spinoff of his comic book, and they actually mimicked the art style a lot.
It was
brilliant. I actually I had that action figure too.
Okay, The Max, yeah.
When we weren't supposed to play with what's that?
Sorry, I know I cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say when we weren't supposed to play with toys anymore because we were, you know, in our 20s, and now I'm like, why? What a fool! What a fool I was!
What a fool!
Fool! Why do you do that, you royal boob? Sorry, I was listening to Skeletor all morning too. By the way, speaking of animation, I for some reason I was cooking and I started spouting lines of Skeletor, and I went on a deep dive of Skeletor lore and how really there is no lore. It writes itself every new you know, reimagination of Masters of the Universe. So there's no like true Bible other than what Mattel did for their you know, action figure line. But just like that idea of this goes back to the animation style and purple because wasn't the Max purple also?
Yeah.
Purple, sort of goldy orange arms, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I remember that figure came out and I was like, this is so like, I don't know, McFarlane might have put it out or.
I think so, yeah.
And I was just blown away by how accurate it looked to the actual comic book. And I remember I never saw the cartoon, or maybe if I did, I only saw one episode, but I love the concept.
It was good. It was really good. Yeah, because he very much seemed like he perhaps came from the tail end of the 70s.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I'm surprised you didn't mention the fact that Corey, that he did the Aliens comic.
Yeah, the Alien, was it Female Earth War, the third one? So my favorite was always that second comic. I love the first one, the black and white, but the second series that had that airbrushed look to it, it was just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And then he did the third series, which was, I thought that was really good too. I love his style, but I didn't love how he drew Colonial Marines. So even though I was like, I'm aware that I'm a fan of his, I didn't love everything that he always did. But I think that's the case with every artist. I don't love like I don't think Todd McFarlane's the best at every character that he draws. Like he's good at Spider-Man, he's good at Spawn, but sometimes I didn't like the way he drew other characters. So very rarely, Frank Quitely is another one of my favorite artists of all time, Frank Quitely. He draws the ugliest women you've ever seen in your life. They're just grotesque, but everything else about his style I absolutely adore.
Yeah, I can't think of it. Now I'm on the spot. I used to like Andy Kubert.
Sergeant Rock back in the day, right? Andy Kubert was Rock, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that comic.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's right on the tip of my tongue.
The toy line sucked for that comic too, by the way, because they had a pose. One arm went down in the front, one arm went up, so you could like hold your gun.
Oh, okay.
But they didn't make it so you could actually shoot the gun with the character. You were just holding it. And I remember the toy line was like potentially cool. Eagle Force had come out at the same time. Those were those little, 1 inch or 2 inch metal little guys, which was a amazing toy line. And I love it. And then no one bought them, so they were like a 99 cents at Toys R Us. And I think they made a comic book for that too, Eagle Force. It might have been a DC, perhaps.
Vaguely remember the figures.
The figures for sure. And it might have come with, there was like a comic strip on the back of the box itself. Anyway, sorry.
It's kind of hard to compete against G.I. Joe in that arena with the.
They tried though. Yeah, God bless them.
Yeah, a lot of people tried. It didn't. And who's still around? What's still, it's G.I. Joe to this day.
G.I. Joe.
Even though you and I have talked before about Guts. Remember the Guts toys that we liked
Guts
back
were
in the
great.
Day? Yeah,
they
those
released
were cool.
I still have my figures from Guts. You guys, I mentioned that on the show too. I still have my Gut. That was the best version of Little Army Men they ever made.
Yeah, my favorite pack was the laser pack, like the future pack or whatever. Yep. That was the one I carried. I had those with me for a long time. I don't know if they're still in my mom's basement, but I adored those as a kid. Dan, so growing up in the 80s, some of obviously everyone's been listening to us for so many years. They know what movies we love. What are some of your favorite films from back in the day that you grew up with, or you look back now and you're like, this is some of my favorite movies of all time? And have we covered them on the show at all?
No, well, I'm going to start with one that I think you both have ambivalent feelings for. Flash Gordon.
Don't say Cyborg. Oh, I love Flash Gordon. Come on, I don't have ambivalent feelings.
Zach loves Flash Gordon. I just picked up the Arrow Blu-ray because I've seen it a few times, and I feel like it's one of those things where I need to just give this a proper check out, just because of so many people, mainly because of Zach loving it so much. I really want to see what this thing's all about, and I think I'm never in the right mindset when I watch it. So I did pick up the Arrow Blu-ray.
It deserves your full attention at least once. Now, especially now on Blu-ray and everything, but the sets and the costumes and everything are amazing.
Especially after watching the Jodorowsky documentary Dune and knowing the influence that they took from his book Dune, from his Bible that he created for Dune, and in turning Flash Gordon, in which came out a few years after that book was being pitched around to studios. It's phenomenal, and that film is not, I would say, a kid's movie necessarily. No. It got kid elements to it, fantastic elements, but man, it's so much fun. And yeah, Corey, you can have some funsy time with that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your opinion. There's stuff you'd like in it, Corey, especially.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Starts with a B, ends with a B. Sometimes
I was say it's the bit when Princess Ardala is being tortured, spread eagled on a space table, and a panel slides back, and her dad's just Max von Sydow in shiny black leather. He's just stood in the background eating grapes while he's watching his daughter get tortured.
Yep.
It's brilliant. It's all those little bits where you're just like, this is the best film ever made.
I mean, it's Topple's best role next to Fiddler on the Roof, so
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
then Sam
And-
Jones as well. Sorry,
and
I didn't mean to cut you
William
off, Dan.
Hootkins is in it for a split second.
Say that again.
William Hootkins is in it for a split second.
It sure is. Yep.
Why do I
Hawkins.
know
And
that
then-
name?
He plays Porkins in Star
Oh,
Wars.
yeah. Yep, there you go. That's it. Yep. And he was also Eckhart. Hey, Eckhart, think about the
Yeah.
future in Batman. And then he was also in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And he was in Hardware.
Yeah, yeah. And Biggles, Adventures in Time.
Okay.
Yes. That movie's very hard to come by as far as movies that are hard to come by.
Yes, yeah. It's on TV all the time over here. That was another one I loved in the 80s when I was a kid. I was explaining to my son, I'll get back to my favourite films in a minute, but when you're a kid, you never come away from the cinema having seen a bad film until you're about
True.
15, 16, and that's when you start getting some some discernibility between films. But for a while, there's a golden age where every film you go and see you think is amazing
Yes.
because you're
Yeah. The only movie that I consciously remember saying this is not good and leaving midway or 3/4 of the way was a movie called Where the Heart Is, starring Dabney Coleman, Uma Thurman, and a whole like cast of people. It's about a billionaire family that suddenly loses everything and they have to go live in a dilapidated old like motel hotel thing, and it's trash. The movie's trash, and I remember as a kid, you guys you should at least watch the trailer of Where the Heart Is. It's bad.
So anyway, Flash Gordon, The Thing, 82 version of The Thing.
Of course.
I was going to say 82 Blade Runner, but yeah, 82 Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Alien. It made me laugh. Someone the other day asked me to name a sequel or a horror film, sequel or a remake that that nobody else likes. That's an edgy one, and I said Halloween 3. So it's my favorite Halloween film. And he went, "Oh, that's a safe choice." I was like, it wasn't a safe choice in the 80s when I saw it.
And so Zach and I have talked about this before. I know you've heard about it, but how can a movie be cult at one point and then become mainstream later? Because we can all agree that John Carpenter's The Thing was a cult movie back in the late 80s and the 90s. But now I would say that it's mainstream. Everybody and their brother has seen it by this point.
Yeah.
Because so many people championed it, for so early on, and to the point where, like, I hear more people talking about The Thing than E.T., and we all know that E.T. coming out that year is what killed, The Thing. So same with Halloween 3. I think, the internet is, for as terrible as social media is, and we all hate about it, there are great things about it, like the fact that we met you, Dan, we met David Irons through, social media and stuff like that, and people we consider friends, and this is awesome. But and another good thing is, I think a lot of people have championed these cult movies so hard that it got, the stiffs, as as Vinkman would say, don't scare the stiffs. It got the stiffs to actually watch these movies and be like, oh, okay, maybe Halloween 3 does have its merits, and spoiler alert, it does have its merits. So I like your statement, Dan. You're like, that wasn't a safe choice to say that back in the 80s or the 90s when we were all growing up, like what sequel that you enjoy. But now everyone loves Halloween 3. So I guess my question to you is, Dan, do we even consider it a cult movie anymore?
I think it still is. It's just that the cult isn't spread out now. We're all in one place with a louder voice, the internet.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think the other thing is, it's the same with the Friday the 13th. So I said Friday the 13th Part 6, which when I was a kid, reading Fangoria and stuff like that, that was like the red-headed stepchild. Nobody liked Friday the 13th Part 6 because it was too funny. And it's like, but that's the best one. It's got the best Jason. I think the thing with Halloween 3 is we've had that many bad sequels that people can't deny that the third one's actually better than most of the sequels.
So you needed the other ones to kind of give it perspective, essentially.
Yeah. Even though it's not got Michael Myers in it, people suddenly go, well, It's better than 5 and 6 and whatever followed. I think that's part of it. And like the Friday the 13th, although the Friday the 13th are more diverse in as I know people that like 8, and I don't mind 8, but I sit and watch it thinking, why did this even get released when they've cut everything that you want to watch the film for out of it?
Right.
Which makes it kind of pointless. But at the same time, I know people that will shout from the rooftops that number 8's brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting too how people, again, this goes back to you enjoying what you enjoy, and if someone doesn't like it, that's fine. And if you love something that is mainstream, and that's fine too. It's up to everybody's own personal opinion. It is interesting to me though when people get so excited over one particular movie, and maybe it's the nostalgia taking over. With the case of Halloween 3, I think that those masks are iconic. But and so many people know the masks, but not everybody knows the story of what it's about, right?
I think some of it now is as well. When I was a kid, I used to fawn over pictures of those masks at the back of Fangoria or Starlog.
Same, yeah.
And it was a rarity to get merchandise for something like that. Now I think half of the stuff is people see the merchandise and go, "Oh, I like the look of that," or "I like the colours on that mask," and then they will look at whatever the merchandise is from.
Right.
So some of it's sort of the tail wags the dog sometimes, where you see I like that you see the alien figure, and not well going, "What's that? That monster looks good." In fact, I saw footage last night from it was a 1979 CBS News report where they were interviewing people that had just come out of Alien with their children. With 5 or 6 years old, bringing the children out. The woman's interviewing them. Yeah, so do you think you should take your child to see this? And what this guy literally said, well, it could all be a true story. It might, we don't know what's out there. I'm just warning my kids about what might be out.
Oh my God.
Well, didn't they make a Kenner over like a giant alien?
I had it.
Yeah,
I had it.
I've still got one.
You have it?
In a box.
Wow.
Still got it in a box.
Wow, that's impressive. That's impressive. Now, did you see Aliens in the theater when it came out?
I have seen it in a theater. I've seen them all in the theater, but not when it came out because obviously over here I had to be 18.
Oh, okay.
Whereas your dad took you, didn't he?
Yeah. But I think David has mentioned that it wasn't quite the same. But here in the 80s, a lot of theaters, you could literally drop your 12-year-old kid off at a rated R movie, and the parent would buy the ticket, and then someone at the counter would just sign it like it's okay, like the parents said it's okay, and like I saw a lot of movies that way by like just I want to go see this, Dad, and but you usually take me, but yeah, Dad took me to actually see it, and my nephew who just turned 8, I saw it when I was 8. He's been chomping at the bit because he knows it's my favorite movie, and he like plays like the Aliens Fireteam Elite game and stuff like that. So he's aware of what xenomorphs are. He's aware of what colonial marines are and stuff like that. So I told him when you turn 8, like we can watch it. And he turned 8 a couple weeks ago, and like the first thing he did, because we called him to wish him happy birthday, the first thing he did was like, "Can I watch Aliens this year?" It's like, my God, okay, yes. So next Thursday is the day. We're watching Aliens next Thursday. Zach's like, "Oh boy."
All I know is I went hiking with Bodie yesterday, and we saw a bunch of spiders on the trail for some reason at the creek. There were just webs everywhere with little spiders, and there were these white spiders, and Bodie goes, "The white spiders are the ones that freak me out the most." And I said, "Well, we're probably not going to watch Alien anytime soon because those little, the face huggers look like white spiders." He's like, "Yeah, nope, I'm good.
It does make me laugh though that how far things have moved on. Alien, it used to be like, we used to have an X certificate over here, which means something completely different to what you have over there.
Yeah.
And the X turned into the 18, and Alien now is like a 15.
Okay.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because
that's interesting.
Things have moved on since then.
It's interesting because it's still like when Kane dies, it's still an intense, like, and it's gory too. Like I'm thinking on Aliens. it's not really that gory. That one girl that kind of, they find her, she has the chest burster, but it's not as gory as Kane's is. And that would be a hard thing for a kid to watch.
Well, the funny thing with that is, when John Hurt died, breakfast television, that's the clip they showed on breakfast TV at like 7:30 in the morning, was Kane's chest burster scene.
Wow.
And apparently they got a record number of complaints.
Yes, of course. Why wouldn't you?
My child just spit up his oatmeal. I was going to say, speaking of seeing Alien in the theater, I did see it one time in the theater here at the Cinerama Dome, or actually the ArcLight in Hollywood. In Hollywood. Rest in peace to the ArcLight, because that theater closed during the pandemic and probably will not open.
No.
There's rumors that the Cinerama Dome and the ArcLight may have been purchased by an investor, but it still sits dormant, which is really sad because it's an iconic landmark in Los Angeles. And one of the few places you go on a regular basis and see many of the actors that were in these movies you love, like going to the movies to see them, because that's the best place to see a movie. And I saw Alien at the ArcLight, and Veronica Cartwright sat right behind me. And during that chestburster scene, I hear her laughing and just like hooting and hollering. And she was not there to be a guest. She was simply there to be a patron. And it was awesome. I turned to my friend and I'm like, Veronica Cartwright sitting right behind us, and then that scene where she's like, oh God, she was like recreating it behind me. It was hilarious.
That's
anyways,
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things, I as you both probably know, Toxic Avenger is getting released probably later this year. With
finally, that thing's been in development hell for like 3 years now.
But the new version, is that the one
yeah.
Peter Dinklage is doing?
Yes.
Oh wow.
I have this feeling though, because people are like, "Oh, that's Peter Dinklage. It's the Toxic Avenger." I think it's gonna be a guy in a suit, because if you look on I think he's just gonna be like
the first version before he turns into the Toxic Avenger.
Yeah. But what a wild world we live in. Dan, you're talking about the ratings changing over time, and Toxic Avenger obviously was Toxic Crusaders in the 90s with the cartoon, and little kids go, I want to watch the movie it's based on. Nope. We can't show that. But now Toxic Avenger is coming back, and it's funny how people who don't know that movie think that it's a movie about like a commentary on toxic masculinity. There's my guy. There's Toxie. Oh, Toxie.
Dan, are you going to get the Toxic Crusaders video game that's going to be coming out at the end of this year, or I guess next year? I don't know. It should be soon, I think.
Is that the one that's like a sideways scrolling Turtles game?
Yeah, it's like the new Shredder's, Revenge, which is great. I picked that up, by the way. It's fantastic. And yeah, they're putting out a Toxic Crusaders game of the same ilk, and I will be buying that day one.
Want that?
I do still have the original VHS somewhere. It's in a vacuum formed box, like a 3D box.
Wow. I remember watching that with my brother and and a bunch of his friends, and that's the only movie I ever saw where I mean, if you've never seen Toxic Avenger, the original, listeners, you should, because it is probably the most over the top. Next to Street Trash, it's probably one of the most over-the-top, balls-to-the-wall, freak-out movies.
And they're remaking... Street Trash is getting remade by the guy who made, Fried Berry, I think?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never seen that movie, but I've heard nothing but great things about it.
I've been tempted to bring it to Pad because it is probably the most ultimate... I think it's the ultimate cult movie. When people say what's the most cultish cult movie of all time, for me, it's Street Trash. I know some people sometimes say The Begotten, but The Begotten I don't think is. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Dan, but it falls flat. That's another one that ranks up there with people saying, "Oh, this is tape traders." Back in the day, you got to see The Begotten. It's amazing.
No, not heard that one. Street Trash is a favorite. It's hard to dislike. I mean, it's just funny now that people say things are problematic because of certain scenes, and it's just like, well, just watch it in the manner it was made.
Right.
I'm just thinking about, You know what I mean? It's like just pretend you're in a time bubble and watch it in the manner it was made. We can all admit that some things are problematic now, but they weren't when it was made.
That's a good test, though. I have a friend of mine who loves horror films. He's got horror tattoos on his body, and he said, what is your favorite, like, craziest movie you've ever seen? And I said, Street Trash. He goes, we should watch it. I said, I have to warn you, though, it's intense, like, it's hilarious. But he's like, oh, let's do it, I'm totally down. And he was quiet the entire time. And the scene where the main character takes a lady back to his lair, and some nefarious things happen. I don't want to give it away. He was like, this is really messed up. I go, what did you expect?
Well,
it's called Street Trash.
May I recommend that you show your friend Blood-Sucking Freaks?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, too, yeah.
I would say that's a step lower than Street Trash.
I showed my wife the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre the other night, and I'm surprised because she loves horror. She's a big fan of horror, but kind of like me, she doesn't like stuff like Hostel and the torture porn stuff. And for me, Texas Chainsaw is probably as far as I sort of go into that realm. Yeah. But I don't ever consider Texas Chainsaw that kind of a movie. But it didn't really connect with her, and we're talking about it, and I'm talking to her like what she didn't like about it, what she did like, and I think at this point, I saw that movie when I was like 12 or 13, and that's gonna fucking like scare the shit out of you at that point. Yeah. But it's hard to like be like, I mean, at this point, if you're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time, like, she's already seen, like, Hereditary. She's already seen, like, these high caliber, and at the same time, she's, of course, aware of, like, how important Texas Chainsaw Massacre is to the history of horror, and she's like, I like that part of it, but she didn't connect with the people, the main people. She's like, I want them all to die, because they shouldn't be snooping where they aren't supposed to be snooping, and I was like, okay, but yeah, I get it. Sometimes you try to put yourself into the mindset, but it's still hard. It's still hard you still have all these other movies in your head, and it's still hard to sort of disassociate yourself from them. That takes a special kind of a talent, I think, that a lot of people don't have. And I'm not trying to throw my wife under the bus, and I don't have it either. I see things now and compared to things I've already seen, even though it's, back then and everything. But it's, found it. And then we went and watched Mannequin, 1987's Mannequin right afterwards to kind of. So now that was our double feature. And I told her about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and how crazy it is and everything. And so she's like, okay, our next double feature is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and Mannequin 2. And I'm like, let's do it.
Wow. Imagine which one's the more horrible of those two films.
Right. Oh, my gosh.
I had the opposite reaction to Texas Chainsaw. I didn't see it until I was about 15. In fact, the first time I saw it was in a theatre. It was on for one night in our local art house.
Wow.
And it was the wrong time for me to watch it, because as an adult, I know what should have scared me about it. As a early teen, as a callow youth, to quote Mallrats, yeah, I didn't know what I should have found scary about it, so I just laughed at most of it. And now as an adult, I'm like, well, I understand what I should find the tone scary and the thought of it and this and that. But as a kid, I was just like, this family's funny and this guy's funny, and look at the furniture. You know what I mean? I was looking at everything but not taking any of it in. Yeah. So it kind of spoilt it for me, because I can't enjoy it as a scary film.
Let me ask you though, because to this day, hands down, one of the most terrifying scenes. There are movies that are. Well, now I was thinking the hitchhiker scene where he takes the straight razor out, and so that level of intimacy of being that close to someone with that dangerous of a weapon, and his look on his face with the sleazy and gross. It still to this day terrifies me. I think it's so creepy.
I think the thing is, I hadn't had the life experience yet to be in a situation similar to that, where it would have gone, I can empathize with this. I think I was just watching it all on the surface.
Yeah.
I must have, like I said, I can remember watching other stuff that scared the shit out of me. That was just simple, like another TV movie, Don't Go to Sleep, where it's got the boy from Poltergeist in it. There's a ghost anyway, and people.
Okay.
The story's going nowhere. But it was the last 30 seconds of that have stayed with me the rest of my life.
Right.
And that was just like, that scared the pants off me. But like I said, Texas Chainsaw, I acknowledge why and what it is, but it was spoiled for me. A bit like The Exorcist. The first time I saw The Exorcist, I laughed all the way through it. But then something like Night of the Demons, which is about as teenager in peril as you can get, that was probably one of the last films that scared me as a teenager. When she's floating around down the corridors and stuff, chasing people, I was like, that's fucking terrifying. Didn't like the arms and things being ripped off, but people floating away down corridors, I'm like, no, I'm out.
Yeah, it's funny with Texas Chainsaw, I saw the horror in it first, and it took me into my adult era to see the humor. And because, I was like, I thought that movie was sort of devoid of humor. And when I was younger, because I think the tone was so oppressive. But I watch it now, and I'm like, oh, there's actually a good amount of humor in it. And if, you take the trajectory of Tobe Hooper, he's gonna, I think Texas Chainsaw is like, 80% horror, 20% humor.
Yeah.
But he's gonna, you can tell that Tobe Hooper wants to make it more balanced. He's trying to find it, and I think, he finally gets there with like Return of the Living Dead. I think that's like the perfect balance of humor and horror. But I feel like you can see it with Tobe Hooper at the beginning, and he's trying to find it. Like, my favorite scene is when Leatherface kills the third guy with the afro, and then he starts looking through the house. He's like, where the fuck are all these kids coming from? Like, and here's the thing, my wife, and I asked her, I specifically talked about that. I was like, she didn't get that. She didn't understand what Leatherface was sort of doing. And I'm like, no, this is comedy. Leatherface is like, where the fuck are all these kids coming from? Like, he's like, so what is happening? And looking at it,
I think is the word.
Was that?
Exasperated would be the word.
He's exasperated, but I found it interesting, and I do think that you can see Tobe Hooper trying to implement more comedy in it, but he takes him years to sort of get there.
Yeah. No, well, he did that with Funhouse, I think, and he also did that with Texas Chainsaw 2, obviously. So
yes.
Do you think that might be something to do? I know this is going to sound like I'm banging the drum for British humour. Do you think it's because you've been exposed to wider sources of comedy, the audio you've got, that's made you realise that it's there later?
Yeah, because that ties into you saying how when you're older, you can understand. I think I always, and I tell my nephew this, watch a movie now, you may like, you may not like it, rewatch it when you're older. And the fact that Zach and I have been doing this and revisiting a lot of movies from our youth as an older person, it's given me a lot of perspective. And I think, having that knowledge under my belt helps with the perspective. Like you said, Dan, you're like, now that I'm older, I can understand, why I should be scared of this, even though it's kind of been neutered for me by this point. You're like, I can understand why I'm supposed to be scared of this. So yeah, I think revisit movies at different points in your life, and just like food, you didn't like lima beans as a kid, revisit them as an adult. You don't know, because everything changes. Your taste buds change, your humor changes, everything.
Except with lima beans.
Well, I was going to say Condor Man.
Condor Man.
The perfect excuse for that. I looked at it as a kid. I watched it as a teen and thought it was fucking ridiculous. Then watched it as an adult, and I'm like, this is amazing.
I love Condor Man.
Was that a live action Disney production?
It sure was.
Back in the day when they were doing Benji and Black Stallion and stuff, right?
They did Black Hole at that same time, and Something Wicked This Way Comes. It was in the late 70s, early 80s, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I never watched Condor Man, probably because I thought it looked silly. But same thing with Dr. Mordred. I never watched that. Zach brought that to the table, and I remember it specifically being that stupid kid who saw the cover and was like, man, looks dumb. And then, we discover that it's one of the best full moon movies out there.
Right.
I had the exact same thing about the stupid video box. Friday the 13th. I didn't see Friday the 13th till I was about 20, because the UK video box was one of those Warner Brothers clamshells with a big black cover. Where they all had the same cover, and then there was a different picture in a box on front of each Warner Brothers. It was Adrienne King in the canoe with her arm over the side. That was the photo. And I was just like, why would I want to watch that? That looks like the most boring horror film I've ever seen.
Right. I think we might need to do an episode or wrap up or something down the road where we take terrible cover art or poster art for wonderful movies, like movies that ended up being way better than the poster or cover.
Well, this was an idea me and Corey were talking about, which was sort of top 10 favorite poster arts that over-delivered on the poster.
Spoiler alert, whenever we do that, and that is great, I'm 100% on for that. You know my number one's going to probably be like DEFCON 4, because that we reviewed that in the first season or something. And
we should do a balance. We should do like the 5 that are great and the 5 that are not.
Yes. Honestly, yes.
I did start. The thing is, it's a visual medium, so talking about it, you'd have to have it on video, or on your webpage. You would have to put all the images on your Instagram or something.
Yeah, maybe we can, maybe we can workshop this offline and maybe do some kind of like YouTube thing, because technically we do have a YouTube channel. We don't utilize it. But yeah, maybe we can go and do something with this in the future, because I've always liked that idea, because there's some great movie posters out there, and obviously. There's like Polish versions of movie posters, like the Terminator Polish. It's awesome.
I keep thinking of the Dark, which should have been a Toby Hooper film and wasn't, and we've discussed it. Oh
yeah, is that the one with the guy's eyeballs like shooting a laser through somebody? Yeah. Yeah,
and it's amazing artwork, and every time I see the artwork, I'm like, maybe I should give that film another chance. And it's got me about 3 times. So I'm like, the film doesn't get any better just because I like the artwork more.
This is true.
Or Rotor. That's the
Rotor.
Has absolutely amazing RoboCop Mad Max knockoff artwork on it.
Yes.
And
I know Rotor. I know I rented Rotor because of that poster, and I know I barely remember that movie because it is not memorable. But you know what? You know what is memorable, Dan? Let's see. The top 5 episodes from the last month. We always do this every wrap-up. We just kind of, just talk about what people's been listening to. Number 5, because we count them down 5 to 1. Number 5, Dr. Mordred. Rocking and rolling over there, baby.
Thank you, Dr. Mordred. Thank you, Jeffrey Combs.
Yes. Thank you, Zach, for bringing that one to the table.
You're welcome. That was a good episode.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Doctor.
Where the hell's the records room?
Dr. Rosen. Number 4, my little quick 20-minute Aliens Dark Descent review, and right before we jumped on this, I'm on my second playthrough of it, and it just fills me with all my colonial marine desires.
Look at you.
Look at you. Number 3, the Go-Go Boys, already popping into the top 5, and we just dropped that like a week ago.
Jeez.
I've not listened to that one.
Oh, what'd you say, Dan?
I've not listened to that one yet.
Oh, it's got someone who comes back from the grave. Menachem.
Well, it might be a fun little tomorrow. Everyone else will hear this already. It'll be out, but tomorrow we're dropping the Jodorowsky Dune documentary as well. So every August we're doing these documentary things before we build up into our September. Augmentary is what we think we call it. We don't know. Number 2 is Interviews After Dark with Jeanette Goldstein. That is a older interview that we put out from the Patreon archives, and glad we decided to do that because these interviews have been getting a lot of traction now that they're floating around in the world.
Yeah, me too. I think we should call August Augmentation Month.
Because are we getting augmented? Like, are we turning into robots? Are we turning into rotors?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Dan's nodding his head yes.
Yeah.
And then number 1, I knew this one was going to be a hit. Everyone loves this movie.
Can I guess what number 1 is?
Yeah.
Is it Maximum Overdrive?
It absolutely is. We made, yeah!
Who made who?
Who made
And that
They
is
just showed that it.
one of those films that's gone over from cult to everybody seems to love it now.
Yeah.
But everybody loves it for a different reason. They all have different reasons for loving it. But yeah, it amazed me. But I can still remember renting that.
And the only people that don't like it because so many people do like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Stephen King hates it so much, but I mean, rewatching it, I mean, Zach, as an adult just now, like a couple weeks ago, it's not a bad movie. Like, we've seen so many worse films.
It just sold out at the New Beverly Cinema here in Hollywood. They showed it for a midnight screening and sold out.
It's far from inept. Yeah, I'd say, like you say, bad films, there's nothing inept about Maximum Overdrive.
No.
At all.
And Stephen King shits on it, and I don't think it's a. Yeah. Anyways, we talk about it on the episode, and I'm glad that people are listening to it because I do think that it deserves some love. You know, especially Stephen King. Listen to our episode, Stephen King.
Yeah, Stephen King, stick to writing books, huh?
It's definitely
running over by cars.
It's definitely going to feature heavily in next year's poster.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
You
good.
told me that.
Well,
and I'm sure
spoiler, we're never doing Dreamcatcher. So
no, never.
That's his worst movie, in my opinion.
Not even to discuss the fact that people only went to watch Dreamcatcher because it had Flight of the Osiris on it.
Well, that's
the Matrix cartoon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That was the only reason anyone went to watch that film.
That was kind of like Meet Joe Black having the Phantom Menace trailer.
Yeah.
What?
Shut up.
I'm kidding.
Shut up. So Dan, this is the time of the show where Zach and I will like unwrap the movies that we're going to be breaking down and reviewing.
Okay.
But since we've already locked in September, because it's going to be, we're officially announcing it now, it's going to be the annual $2 late fee Podcasting After Dark crossover. First year was The Wraith. Second year was Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
Which I just
it's a wild movie. And so first year, Zach and I think we did like 1 or 2 episodes. Second year, we definitely did 2. We did 3. And now it's going to be an entire month. Interview, everything, including Territory Marks. I'm going to actually be on Territory Marks. We're doing that tomorrow. Zach, I'll be watching everything today. And Dan, we would like for you to announce to the world what the crossover, the Podcast After Dark $2 late fee crossover is.
Drum roll. It's Roadhouse.
Boom. Roadhouse, baby. And
starring
it was
Sam Elliott and Swayze.
Yes.
And Dan, you probably, I think it was on Dr. Mordred, you heard when Zach pretty much called it. So I had mentioned, I think it was on Dr. Mordred or Maximum Overdrive. I can't remember which one. It was on one of the recent episodes where I was like, I mentioned I'd never seen Roadhouse before. And we took a pee break in between the episode. Zach texted Dustin. And then we come back from it and like from the pee break. And Zach's like, okay, so we're doing Roadhouse, by the way.
So we've already recorded the interview. We have already recorded the fun like pre-episode to the breakdown. That'll be dropping next Sunday. And yeah, it's Roadhouse all month. Coincidentally, we're doing a tribute to Terry Funk because he passed away just a few days ago from the recording of this. And but we'd already planned to do a tribute to Terry Funk at that time in 1989 when the movie came out. So the content's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be great. I just finished editing the next week's episode, and spoiler, Dustin and Corey gang up on me once again for various reasons, and I take it like a man. I've got the scars to show. So
Dustin made me cry. It made me laugh so hard I was crying that episode.
Yeah, you'll feel Corey's tears, his tears of joy coming through.
It's a fine movie.
Yes, it's a fine movie. Dan, this has been awesome having you on, dude.
Yeah, it really has, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us. I definitely want to do that poster show. So whenever we can figure out the best format to do it, you will be on there, and we'll all three of us, figure it out. But Dan, dude, thank you so much. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being an awesome artist. Thank you for producing these posters for us and everything. I can tell you, whenever I wear one of them, the shirt, everyone is just like, whoa, like looking at it and studying it and everything.
My son Bodie, he has the pillow on his bed downstairs of year one, and he loves it. He just thinks it's the best. So
I got my pillows over here too. Yeah,
I got to say, my favorite part of the year one poster is the hot dog.
Yeah, so it's got to be. That's a given.
I remember Corey going, "That's a deep dive," and I was like, "It's the only bit I really remember from the Exterminator."
I mean, I love all the obscure stuff that you put in there and everything. Same. And it's you're a joy to work with, my friend, as far as like art, communication goes and all that kind of stuff. And guys and gals out there, Dan is open to commissions and stuff. Feel free to hit him up, and he's a great artist to work with. Dan, do you have anything you want to plug or anything? Your artwork was featured in that Aliens artwork book that came out, I think about a year and a half ago. Yeah. I got that for Christmas, and the first thing I did was open to your page and show my mom. I was like, that's my friend. Look. Right here.
Yes, that definitely put a smile on my face. No, I've not got anything on the go at the moment. Well, a couple of bits I've got coming up in what's it called? Cinema 187. It's a fanzine, and Brain Bleed zine. I've got some pieces popping up in them. They're on Instagram somewhere. But that's it. No, I've got nothing in the pipeline. I'm just filling my time.
And is Instagram the best place to find you out there?
Yes, it's
okay.
Technically the only place to find me out there.
Well, we will have a link in the show notes to your Instagram account. And like I said, everybody, please go give Dan a follow. I'm sure everyone who's listening probably already does. But if you haven't out there, go check him out. Go check out all the posters that he did. You can find everything on our website, podcastingafterdark.com, and you can see his posters there and stuff.
Sorry to cut in. Can I give a shout out to your friend and mine, Stiff Kitten, aka Crystal?
Crystal, yeah, of course,
Crystal.
Of course.
She did me a massive solid and sent me a Killer Clowns candy gun from Spirit of Halloween the other week. And I said I'd give her a shout.
She's the best. She was one of our first people to sign up for the Pick Your Movie tier and everything, and she gave us some interesting picks.
Yes. She has quite the VHS collection.
She sure does. We love you, Crystal.
We do love you, Crystal. And we love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being Patreon members. Thank you so much for supporting the show. At this point, we're like I said, we're a few steps into our 5th year, but my God, it's been amazing. And of course, look out for a year 5 poster from Dan Parker in 11 months now, to 10 and a half months from now or something. So.
I'm counting the days.
Yes, thank you, buddy. And of course, go check out $2 Late Fee, Territory Marks. Zach's got all kinds of stuff going on over there. And this month coming up, I will be on Territory Marks as well as every other episode of $2 Late Fee. So you can find all of that over at $2latefee.com. That's TWO. And give our boys a 5-star review too on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as giving us a 5-star review as well.
Of course.
Of course. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.